Welcome to Sistory History Season 3, Episode 5, In the Navy. The Georgian era was a transformative time in British maritime history. Innovations in shipbuilding, tactics and training ensured Britannia was indeed a force to be reckoned with when it came to ruling the waves. Unsurprisingly, there are some big headliners from this period: Mutiny on the Bounty, Captain Cook and the Endeavour, the Napoleonic Wars, and of course Lord Admiral Nelson with his flagship the HMS Victory. But it's not all heroic battles and dazzling discoveries. The Atlantic slave trade, the subjugation of indigenous peoples, and the spreading of disease across the globe are just a few examples of the darker side of naval expansion. Today, we'll discuss what the sources can tell us about everyday life on the high seas, and by focusing on the sensory, we hope to uncover some lesser-known aspects of this perilous profession. So, grab a bucket quick smart, and let's swab that deck.
Swabbing the deck isn't a fun job, so who do we have helping us today?
We have two visual sources who will be of no use whatsoever, but we do have two chaps who may assist: Samuel Leech and James Lint. Samuel was born in England in 1798 and he joined the British Navy aged just 12. His ship was the HMS Macedonian and it was captured in battle by the Americans, and he actually then switched sides and served in the American Navy before eventually becoming a Methodist preacher and dying in the USA. And James Lint, born in Edinburgh in 1716, he was a physician and served as a surgeon in the Royal Navy. He specialised in naval hygiene and lived to the ripe old age of 77.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah. Would you like to go first today?
Yes, please, I would. So, my sense is touch. And my source today is a solid gold fork.
A note to the listeners, we will of course have pictures of our visual sources on our social media and website.
It's curved slightly at the bottom with a steel knife edge for cutting.
Oh, handy.
So I presume the cutting is done with a kind of rocking motion. And then the handle is engraved with the N initial. This N initial is for
Nelson.
Yeah, this was a gift from Countess Spencer. She was the wife of the first Lord of the Admiralty, and Nelson lost his right arm at a relatively benign battle, actually, not one of his big hitters. The Battle of Santa Cruz, 1797, when he was about 40 years old. So this implement, fork and knife combo, what would you call that?
A nork? No. A fife?
Yeah, we'll go with fife. He owned several of these, but some of them are a bit more rough and ready. Literally a fork with a knife bolted onto the bottom.
Makeshift.
This is by far the sleekest of design.
It's nice.
Yeah, it is nice, isn't it? And actually, you can still buy something like this today for amputees or for people who might only have use of one limb. They are called the Nelson design.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It has his name still attached to it today, this design of fife.
I guess today we do have sporks, don't we? They are real things, so a combination of a spoon and a fork.
Very popular in certain supermarkets if you're buying maybe a yoghurt.
Yes, exactly.
In the meal deal. But this, it's solid gold. It's not only beautiful, but it's practical. It's a satisfying, weighty item. You know, when you go to a nice restaurant, you've got the posh cutlery and it's heavy. It feels really satisfying to hold quite weighty cutlery. But this perhaps would have helped in the cutting of the food. Loss of limb was a common injury in the Navy. Lots of splintering wood from cannon shot, or even cannon shot themselves, or gunshots. The term able-bodied seaman, you may have heard.
I have.
It actually refers to a seaman's experience and their specific skill set as a member of the crew. Everyone who went on board a Georgian naval vessel was given a sort of grading as to their experience. And able-bodied just meant that you had had 2 or more years' experience at sea.
Okay.
There is evidence to suggest that loss of limb didn't hinder promotion or being on active duty in any way. Because such a high number of people were missing limbs, it was quite common for senior officers to be amputees, as well as the rank and file crewmen. And it was also possible for a rank and file crewman, who was also an amputee, to be promoted So as long as they could carry out their duties, then there was no reason for them not to be part of the crew. And there are a few examples of men climbing rigging in contests and swinging off the ships and just showing that they can do the same job as they were doing before they lost their limbs. Mm-hmm. I think what I'm getting at here is that this is a very beautiful example of an item that must have been commonplace throughout naval vessels in the Georgian period. Mm. But this is probably the fancier end.
This is the luxury one. Thanks very much. That's very interesting. So that does link in quite nicely to my first source, which is James Lint, our physician. So it's a medical text called A Treatise on the Scurvy, page 191 to 193. On the 20th of May, 1747, I took 12 patients in the scurvy on board the HMS Salisbury. Their cases were as similar as I could have them. They all in general had putrid gums, spots and lassitude with weakness of their knees. They had one diet common to all: water gruel sweetened with sugar in the morning, fresh mutton broth for dinner, at other times puddings, boiled biscuits with sugar, and for supper, barley and raisins, rice and currants, fagot and wine. 2 of these were ordered each a quart of cider a day. 2 others took elixir vitriol 3 times a day upon an empty stomach. 2 others took 2 spoonfuls of vinegar 3 times a day upon an empty stomach. 2 of the worst patients were put under a course of seawater. The others had each 2 oranges and 1 lemon given to them every day. They continued for 6 days under this course. The 2 remaining patients took nutmeg 3 times a day. The consequence was that the most sudden and visible good effects were perceived from the use of the oranges and lemons, one of those who had taken them being at the end of the 6 days fit for duty. The spots were not indeed at that time quite off his body, nor his gums sound, but without any other medicine than a gargle of elixir vitriol, he became quite healthy before we came into Plymouth. The other was the best recovered of any of his condition, and being now deemed pretty well, was appointed nurse to the rest of the sick. Next to the oranges, I thought the cider had the best effects.
I mean, it started off pretty rancid.
With the putrid gums?
With the putrid gums and the spots and the weak knees, which was interesting.
Yeah, and the lassitude. I originally thought, before I read a lot about scurvy, that it was, sores and skin problems and things like that. But actually, there's tiredness and fatigue, sore and stiff joints and swelling, bleeding gums, bleeding under the skin. And in fact, death was usually from infection or bleeding. It took a long time for wounds to heal, so they'd be more likely to get infected. Anyway, scurvy is due to lack of vitamin C.
Yeah, I know a man who got scurvy at university. Well, early onset scurvy.
Oh my word, for real?
He only ate sausages.
Oh, that'll
do
it.
Be warned. You do need some fruit and veg in your diet.
Yes. Oh dear. The challenge with getting vitamin C if you're a sailor is that your fruit and veg supplies on a boat aren't going to last long. So you're not going to have them very often. There was a lot of death from scurvy. In fact, the statistics suggest that 81% of deaths were attributed to disease and accidents.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I read something about the 7 Years' War, which was actually 9 years, confusingly, that a few years into it, 143 sailors had died in combat versus 13,000 from illness. But yeah, scurvy was the main culprit.
Is James Lind attributed with working out what scurvy was?
Interestingly, there are indications in other sources, decades and decades previous, where people have made the link and they've been seeking out sources of vitamin C. So he's certainly not the first person to make the link. And although his recommendation or his findings suggested the link, nothing was really done about it for a good few decades afterwards.
That's irritating.
Yeah.
And it seems like people knew about it, but it may have just been hearsay that, oh, have a lemon and you'll be fine.
Yeah, so almost like an old wives' tale maybe. There was definitely some ad hoc use of fruit and veg in the following years, but no wholesale change in approach until 1795. And in fact, it was another Scottish physician, Gilbert Blaine, and he followed up on Lint's work, eventually persuaded the Admiralty to formally include daily lemon juice in the naval diet.
And also good for kidney stones. 2 birds with 1 stone there. Good old Scotland coming to the rescue.
So some interesting things that may have occurred to you during the reading. Elixir of vitriol.
Yes.
Sounds fun?
Well, vitriol is a bad thing, isn't it?
It was alcohol mixed with sulfuric acid. but it can't have tasted very good. It certainly wasn't in the effective section.
I would have thought nutmeg would be up there, though. I don't know why. I feel like it's kind of a fruit, but it's also not. But turmeric's good for you.
Anyway, thinking about taste then, generally, and diet in the Navy, mealtimes were very important. Sacred almost. You'd get 45 minutes for your breakfast, 90 minutes for your dinner and your supper. And that was pretty much sacrosanct, you know? You couldn't expect people to just down a sandwich in 10 minutes and get back. The officers and the crew had very similar rations, but officers could obviously supplement and use their gold forks. And
I bet they had some more ready cash to buy a bag of crisps.
But the sorts of things that they'll be eating as standard are things that you can store easily, that you can preserve easily, and that will last, and aren't obviously too enormous or cumbersome. So things like boiled meat, oatmeal, sugar, butter and cheese, coffee, beer, low alcohol though. You don't want everyone trolleyed. Peas was the only standard vegetable, supplies that they take with them.
It's so English.
To be fair, peas do go with a lot of stuff. And also ship's biscuits, of course, which were known as tack, a dense biscuit, often with weevils in. Not fun. But there were things called bumboats.
That sounds like a fun cocktail. Tell me it's a fun cocktail.
No, it's not. No. It's a boat. A supply boat.
Okay.
So when a naval vessel was moored offshore, bumboats would come out with supplies. Often they would have fruit and vegetables from the local area. The name comes from the Dutch words boomschwit, which mean canoe and boat. Makes sense.
Small boat, basically. Small boat.
But that is ultimately supplementing their
peas, mutton, and disappointing biscuits.
Yeah. I did come across some very interesting food items. Lobscouse.
Is it lobster?
No. Oh. It's a combination of boiled meat, of course.
Right.
Onions.
Peas. Oh, bit of flavour.
Yeah. Salt and pepper. Ship's biscuit.
Oh.
All sort of mushed together. Or we have portable soup.
I would argue that all soup is portable in the right vessel.
But this was especially portable. It was a block, a dry block. Think stock cube, but bigger. Remember I talked to you about the biscuits, ship biscuits?
Of course, with the weevils.
Very dense ship biscuits. But they were cheap and they lasted for a really long time. What the crew used to do, because of the weevils, you'd break it up and you'd put it in your coffee, and then the little weevils would float up to the top so that you could scoop them out. And would you like to know about a weevil experiment?
Absolutely.
There was an attempt to eradicate weevils from their supplies of flour and biscuits.
That's fair.
So they put live lobsters in those casks, hoping that they would eat the weevils. Left them in there for a few days, went to check. All the lobsters were dead. All the weevils were fine.
They just killed some lobsters in a really horrible way.
Yeah.
Such a disappointing end to the experiment. Well, thank you very much, Laura.
You're very welcome.
Thinking about life on vessels, it's all a bit bleak, isn't it, so far? I mean, everyone's got scurvy and eating weevils. My second source, then, is actually from a memoir of a guy who worked on naval vessels from age 12. Poor lad. This is Samuel Leech, an extract from Chapter 3 from his autobiography, A Voice from the Main Deck. In Lisbon, the captain procured a fine band composed of Frenchmen, Italians and Germans, taken by the Portuguese from a French vessel. These musicians consented to serve on condition of being excused from fighting and on a pledge of exemption from being flogged. They used to play to the captain during his dinner hour, the party to be amused usually consisting of the captain and one or two invited guests from the wardroom, except on Sundays, when he chose to honour the wardroom with his august presence. The band then played for the wardroom. They also played on deck whenever we entered or left a port. On the whole, their presence was an advantage to the crew, since their spirit-stirring strains served to spread an occasional cheerful influence over them.
Oh, that's nice. Got a bit of music going on.
Now, when we think of music in the Georgian Navy, what do you think of, Laura?
A drum, for sure, on a boat. Trumpet?
Pipe thing. Yeah, like a bugle.
Yeah, because you're going to need things to be heard, aren't you? I would imagine maybe there was signalling attached to some of those instruments.
Absolutely, yes. So it was quite often for vessels to have kind of makeshift musicians, definitely a drummer and a fife player. So, for example, assembling the crew, they would play the call to quarters, They also provide a rhythm for the heave-ho, so when you're pulling up the anchor or hoisting the sail, that kind of thing. But like I said, it would normally be makeshift, a couple of members of the crew who also happened to play an instrument.
Right.
I'm just going to play you an example of some music.
Okay.
That's a drum and a fife.
Yeah, fife is a high-pitched.
Yeah. You've got the rhythm from the drums, the heave-ho, and then you've got the shrill whistle that will enable people to hear commands.
Yes.
Fine. This extract, though, mentions, I feel, more of a formal band. The captain has his band playing when he's at dinner. I, for one, would not be interested in hearing the drum and fife playing when I was having my tea.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't, in a close quarters situation, a bit echoey. There's not going to be any soft furnishings in there. I don't think it would be a very pleasant experience to have somebody drumming and playing a very shrill whistle next to your head. So this band of musicians, Frenchmen, Germans and Italians, it is more likely that they played softer instruments. Maybe a violin, maybe a clarinet.
A clarinet?
Yeah. But it is probable that they played multiple instruments. They also agreed to serve, but they didn't want to be involved in the fighting.
Fair.
And they didn't want to be flogged.
So what would they do? Just play?
So they would play, but they would also get involved in other ship's duties, you know, cleaning, swabbing the deck, maybe helping out in other ways. But there's an account later on where they're actually fighting the Americans, and the band just go, yeah, we're going to go, we're just going to go downstairs. We're just going to go and hide downstairs. Hope that's okay. Yeah, so these guys sign up and actually live on the vessel, and they are just there. I know they're cleaning and things like that, but they are actually hired to play music for the captain.
And I guess if you think about the space restrictions on a Navy vessel and obviously what it's there to do, space-wise, it would have been more efficient to have other crew members, right, who are going to actually assist in the battle and do more of the all-round stuff.
Yeah.
So they're placing quite a high value on this type of entertainment.
They are. But like you said, for space, the HMS Macedonian, on which Samuel Leech was serving, was a 38-gun frigate. It had 300 crew, and they had this space for these guys who weren't fighting, remember?
No.
Or being flogged. In fact, it's likely that the captain paid for this out of his own pocket.
Okay.
But as the Navy progressed, it was more and more usual for there to be a budget for a band. Music became super important on board, not just to help with commands and heave-ho and all that kind of thing, but also it was a source of pride to have a good band. Captains would receive guests on board. They would entertain dignitaries when they were in port. It wouldn't just all be fighting. There's more to being in the Navy than just going to battle. It would be liaising with other vessels and inviting people's wives for dinner on board, that kind of thing. So if you have a good musician, then that will add to your cachet.
I see. So they're almost brand ambassadors, I guess, for Britannia and for the British Navy, right?
Yeah, and it's a source of pride. The men, it does lift their spirits when they hear these songs being played. When they're going into port and they're coming back to England and the band's on deck and everyone's happy, and they do help to lift the spirits. Reading this account of Samuel Leech, it's actually interesting how much entertaining visitors was a part of the Navy. He was in dock, for example, I think in America, and people wanted to know about the fight. So tourists effectively would come on board. And he was given a few pennies to go, yeah, well, John was over there and he got shot and then this happened. We still do it, I guess. We go on the HMS Belfast in London and things like that. But people were just as interested to go on these vessels and hear about the stories and the battles that they'd been in.
From people who'd seen it firsthand as well.
Absolutely.
Well, a band sounds much more fun than some of the sounds that they were listening to on a daily basis. They were in battle, that incessant cannon fire, ship's bells, changing watches.
groaning from all the scurvy.
Yeah, people with dysentery.
Oh, God.
A bit of fife and drum.
We've got very international voices, though, don't we? We've got
That's
Italians,
true.
Germans, French. We've got Portuguese on board. We've got Americans actually serving on this vessel as well. So it would have just added to that sense of camaraderie, help with the operation of the ship, and yeah, something to be proud of. We've got the best band. Do you want me to play a little bit more of the roast beef of Old England again?
Oh, that's what it's called. Nice. Caroline, to finish off the source selection for today, I would like you to look at two photos. If you recall, a few months ago, I spent a couple of days in Portsmouth visiting the Historic Royal Dockyard.
You did?
With my son, and it was excellent.
Yeah.
We could have spent another couple of days there just doing stuff at the dockyard. And we took some good photos. Here I have a photo of an officer's toilet.
Sure.
For you.
I'm glad you took this one, Laura.
It's a nice toilet though.
It's a lovely toilet.
Yeah. And if you look at the next photo, that's also a toilet.
Less nice,
Mm-hmm.
but breezy.
Breezy, yes.
Are we talking smells?
No.
Oh. Sight?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Correct. Okay, so we've got the two toilets that you can see here. We've got the officer's toilet, ascribed to Nelson actually, so this could have been...
This is Nelson's
this
toilet?
could have had Nelson's bottom on it. Although there has been a lot of restoration work, so I can't tell you for certain whether the timbers are original. They look very nice and shiny. What we've got is the typical bench-style toilet. We've got a flat bench on top. We've got a hole in there where you would position yourself. And there's a drop, obviously, going down there. And it's a little cubicle, painted a nice pale blue.
Oh, okay, so it's its own little room, isn't it?
There's a door that you can go into. It's on the side of the ship. There's a lot of light in there. It's a pleasant place to be. I've been in worse modern toilets, I have to say.
Yeah. It's rare to get one window in a toilet.
I'm not sure if you can open these or whether they were openable at the time. But there's ventilation potential if you really need it. You can just smash a panel.
Needs must.
Can you imagine yourself sitting down there?
Yeah, I don't see why not. Dual aspect.
Yeah, a lovely view. The toilet experience in here, you're on your own. This is a solo toilet experience. We take it for granted today, but it wasn't the case if you were in the Navy. Nice decor, private, indoor, peaceful, nice view. If we look at this other option here, these were called the crew heads. Heads is just another name for toilet on a boat, and the reason that they're called that, they're at the head of the ship, they're at the front.
Dangerous. Is that not the bit that dips down into the water whenever it hits a wave? That seems perilous.
Anyway, we've got the same style. We've got the block, we've got the flat plank on the top, and you can just about see the holes there. But it's not just one hole, is it?
It's two holes.
It's two holes. This isn't a solo toilet experience.
This is a duo.
This is a duo. And in fact, duo, I think, would have been quite a treat. There were options where you might have three, maybe four.
The triple and the quads.
Yeah. Sometimes you might be alone, but if you're thinking about how many crew are on board, so if we take this is the HMS Victory, 100-gun ship, so your crew 800-ish to 1,000, but that's a lot of people, and then the actual number of toilets for the crew, it wouldn't be more than a dozen. So you're probably going to have company for most of your trips.
Well, maybe you need somebody to hold on to when the waves are high.
That's true, or if you're having a tricky time.
In fairness, it's a good view.
It's a great view, and that's why I've gone with sight, because on a beautiful sunny day, some rolling waves, maybe you're up early, you're on an early watch, there's not many people around.
That's quite magical, really.
Isn't it? Do you remember when, of course you do, when we did the Inca Trail? And I think it was day 3, we had that mountaintop toilet that our guides created for us because there wasn't a toilet block where we were camping.
Yes.
So they just made this little makeshift toilet.
It was a seat in a bag.
It was a seat in a bag, yeah. But we were on the top of the Andes looking out. We couldn't see anyone. I was just thinking about that amazing view of nature, being all alone. Try and forget about the thing that you're actually doing. Keep that magic alive.
So really what you're saying is, it doesn't matter what rank you are, you still get a great view from the privy.
From your throne, yeah. And the added bonus of the crew heads is that they do get the natural bonus of the seawater coming over the decks,
Yeah.
sluicing, so you get a bit of extra hygiene in there
And
as
it's
well.
fresh air.
Fresh air, yeah.
Yeah.
So Nelson in his cubicle, if he hasn't got good ventilation going on, that could get a little bit tricky. But the guys out on the front,
They don't need an airwick.
no. Thinking about touch, though, in relation to this.
You can't add on a sneaky extra one.
Okay, but how do you think they cleanse themselves?
With seawater.
Well, no.
No.
Unless, I suppose, there was a nicely timed wave.
Just bent over.
Toilet paper wasn't invented, sadly, until the late 19th century. So they had to rely on bits of paper or newspaper or maybe bits of cloth.
What, and then you just throw it overboard?
I'm not sure about this. I couldn't find anything that talked about it. I'm hoping they're not. I mean, the paper's okay because that would disintegrate. Bits of cloth, though, we don't want that floating around in the sea. But I don't know.
When you're in port and the vessel is docked, can everyone just see you going to the toilet from the dock?
I mean, I guess so, but that's actually a good point. It's not only about what you can see,
yeah,
but what other people can see.
Yeah.
They can see you going about your business. It's probably very harrowing for the first few times, but then you're just going to get used to it, aren't you?
Just thinking of the visiting dignitaries and go, don't look over there.
The officers' wives have to shade their eyes.
Lovely. Well, thank you.
You are very welcome. Today you really have gone with the classier end of the Navy.
Me?
Yeah, dining, music. I've gone with scurvy and toilets.
Yes, you have actually, yeah.
Don't know what that says about us.
We're giving the whole spectrum.
Would you like a quiz?
As long as it's not about toilets.
Not about toilets.
Lovely. Yes, please.
This is my most elaborate quiz to date. It's inspired by a magnet I purchased at Portsmouth Historic Dockyard.
Did not see that coming.
Are you familiar with international maritime signal flags?
Limited knowledge, but
Okay.
sure. Yeah, I'm aware of that they exist.
For the benefit of anyone who isn't, they're an internationally recognised and used method of communicating between sea vessels. Each flag represents either a letter of the alphabet and or a specific statement or instruction. I'm going to show you a selection of 6 flags and I'm going to give you 6 statements and I would like you to match them up and you'll get a point for each correct match, so there are 6 points available. If anyone listening would like to play along, I've made an excellent flag collage which you can find on our website and social media. Don't laugh at me.
No. Excellent flag collage wasn't something I was expecting to hear today, that's all.
Shall I give you the statements?
Yes.
No. We need medical assistance.
Okay.
Man overboard. Ship is dragging anchor. We're on fire and carrying dangerous cargo. Keep clear. We need assistance, not medical.
Oh, okay.
Number 1 is no.
I think the no is E, which is a white background with a red cross through it.
I can see why you're thinking that, but no, incorrect.
Oh, okay.
We need medical assistance.
I think that is E, which is a white background with a red cross through it.
No.
Oh, for God's sake.
Man overboard.
F, which is blue, white and red boxes.
No. Ship is dragging anchor.
A.
No. We're on fire and carrying dangerous cargo. Keep clear.
Okay, I think that's A, which is half yellow and half red.
No.
Oh.
This is your last chance for a point. We need assistance, but not medical.
Is it C, which is blue and white stripes?
No.
Oh, for God. Okay, this is difficult.
But do you like the flag collage?
It's a fantastic flag collage.
I'm now going to tell you the correct answers. No is B. We need medical assistance is F. Man overboard is A. Ship is dragging anchor is D. We're on fire is C.
That's not fire. Fire should be red and yellow.
And we need assistance, not medical, is E.
None of these make any sense. Who made Who made these up?
I
Because
do
I need
not-
to have a word with them.
I do not know who made them up, but we can find that out and we can put you in touch. There's probably some sort of flag association.
I'm pretty sure the world would agree with me that We're on Fire should not be blue and white. It should be red and yellow.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was 0 points.
Yeah, 0 points out of 6, 0%. That's brought your average down.
Damn you, Navy.
Thanks for joining us today. If you like what you heard, then please do take the time to like, rate, share and subscribe wherever you download your podcasts. You can find us on Instagram, X and Facebook. or why not email us at sistoryhistory@gmail.com. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.